On episode 58 of Chit Chat, we prove you can't spell the word game without ME and jump into playing solo. There's just so many options these days. And thanks to the internet, we're still able to team up and play together.
Welcome back to episode 58 of Chit Chat. As you can see, some things are different here. Kira is not on tonight's episode, but she is with us. She is behind the scenes. She is running everything. So if anything goes wrong, it's really her fault tonight, right, Kira? She can't say anything. This is great. But Kira's not here, but we do have a special guest. Our very own Jeremy Howard is here. Welcome, Jeremy.
Hey, party people. I'm so happy to finally be on a Chit Chat. It's been a long time coming. Let's do this.
And why do you think he's on here? Well, that's because tonight's topic is solo gaming, and he does a ton of solo gaming. And we've all been doing a little bit more solo gaming lately because when we're not being able to get online and play with each other, we might be playing at home, playing our own games. So before we get into any of that, though, we have a winner from last episode.
Right. So last week we gave away a copy of Gizmos. It's going to Matthew McNaughton. Make sure you email us at manversusmeeple@gmail.com. And this week we're giving away a copy of The Shining. Perfect time to watch a scary movie during a pandemic, right? So make a comment below and you're automatically going to be entered to win. All right, so let's talk about solo gaming. Everyone's been quarantined at home. Obviously, are quarantined with their family, or possibly with a friend. Maybe if you're stuck there at the right time, you may have someone to play with. But if you're not, you're there by yourself, you're going to dig into solo games. And who to bring, as you already alluded to, then J-How. Because J-How, you are technically probably one of the bigger solo gamers out there as far as board games go.
Sure.
Sure.
Sure, sir. No, I am. I mean, I'm really into the board game solo community. So yeah, I understand that. But yeah, I play a lot of solo games. Now, I don't always play solo games, but the majority of gaming I do is by myself. I mean, hey, man, I don't mind playing a couple, 2-3-handed solo experience. I don't mind. I'll do it all. I go all in, and that's not for learning. That's for actual playing. So go ahead.
Do you prefer playing games solo? Like, if you were to have the opportunity, would you rather play around with? I don't mean that I'm not a very social person, but do you prefer playing solo games where you can learn them by yourself and make up your strategies before getting introduced from other people by about that particular game?
When this is the interesting part. Let's get one thing out of the way. You know how some people say I learned the game playing solo? Like I just learned the game. I was going through the rules. I don't ever do it that way. Like I only do play testing maybe that way. Like, well, I'll learn the game and I'll play it like 3 different ways, like a kind of like a dumb AI version, a really aggressive person, and then me trying to win all at once. That thing I do. But when I play solo, I play solo. Like, so I don't mind. Like Frosthaven, when I did that solo live play, I was gonna play 3-handed, but I didn't want it to be forever. So but I do love playing with people. I mean, I'm definitely a people person. That's where I get party people from. But it's like a perfect mix for me. It's a perfect mix for me. For right now, I'm missing people probably more than everybody else because it's like I'm a solo gamer, but I really look forward to those nights where I get to play with my friends. And I like get amped up about going to these conventions and playing with everybody all the time. I always say, if you stop me and ask me to play a game, yes. It's what I love the most is solo experiences, I guess. Getting that game to the table, crunching out those puzzles, and just really digging into it and having a battle between me and the AI and chase that score. I love it. I do.
That's a unique perspective because, I mean, I got to say, and I'm going to be 100% honest with the audience here, I'm not a solo gamer, and I don't like my board games being played solo because I've never found a really good solo game where I felt the AI was challenging enough for me. So I'm going to ask you that question too. Do you find any games super challenging against AI? But the other thing I'll say is, if I'm going to play a solo game, I'm typically going to go towards video games because video games are built, the majority of them are built more as a solo experience.
Yeah.
So when I gravitate towards a solo game, I'm not going to gravitate towards ones that have points in them. Like trying to beat a score is never exciting for me. I'm going to gravitate more towards the ones that have story elements to them. Things that I'm trying to discover. Games like Tainted Grail, those type of games where I'm following this progressive story. There's a narrative that keeps me involved, and it's not just mechanical. Like the games that you play, are they more mechanical or are they more story driven? And have you found an AI that's really, really hard to beat?
Well, wow, that's really interesting. So the cool part about that, I'll just say this: I don't like beat your score generally, but there are some new games that are incorporating a objective plus score, or like they'll have like a threshold. They'll have a threshold, and then you can win. But like now, they actually have games with like full-on objectives, like check 1, 2, 3 plus score. I like that kind of stuff. That's different to me, because it's just like, I just like that kind of element. Now, when you said video games, like the games that I'm playing right now and the games that I like are like action point type games. You're moving from different quadrants and things like that, squares at a time, like XCOM and like this game I'm playing right now, Druidstone. Like these very much move point, which is why I like these dungeon crawler type games. Some of them struggle because they only have these certain AI decks. We're talking, 15, 20 cards. I memorized the cards after a while. Scythe had that problem. I memorized all 24 cards. I just got tired of playing it. So I have to find, and that's the hardest part. You're going through $100 games trying to find that AI that'll kind of like, oh, that'll throw me off if that happens. And Gloomhaven was the first one because it's the combination of the puzzle of what that deck will do. And there's so many decks I have to pay attention to, other than knowing that a shaman has this effect where it'll bless and also ruin my deck. But I also have 3 other puzzles with these 3 characters that I have to hand manage, plus 4 or 5 different things. And I like that feeling. Like I like that insurmountable task in a sense that I'm going to go with each time, and it's different. That's challenging. Mage Knight is the same idea. It is a big time adventure. There's some unpredictability, but as you get to that last day and night and it's coming and you see that last castle open and you got a murder's row, it's tough. It's got to the point where Mage Knight is actually a beat your score game. It actually is a beat your score game, but nobody really sees it that way. Like solo gamers are kind of divided on that because everybody will say they hate beat your score games. But Mage Knight is a beat your score game. So what people will be like, I survived that. I survived. That's the game. It's the rare game where it's like I survived because it feels like a full adventure. Right. And another game that does that but does not do the score part is Shadows of Killforth or Gloom of Killforth. Those are sort of like those types of games. So like you have a full adventure, one off, and that doesn't involve score, but it's the same idea.
Okay. Yeah. What about you, David?
Yeah, I'll admit this too. I've never been a solo gamer. It's never been anything that's been interesting to me. But I would say even a little bit before sort of the quarantine that we're all in right now, I did start dabbling in it. And what I found, and this kind of touches on a couple of the points you guys just made, not so much narrative necessarily, although they do kind of skew that way. Definitely not beat your score. But I find myself playing cooperative games by myself. Mm-hmm. So any of those games where you survive and that's the win, where it's a binary, you won or you lost. Death May Die is a perfect example. Marvel Champions is a perfect. In fact, I was going to challenge you earlier, Jeremy. I would say Marvel Champions has definitely pushed your solo buttons. Sure. But those games where you're basically just trying to win by beating the thing, beating the monster, beating the boss. The ones that have kind of, you're playing the game, but you're playing against sort of an artificially intelligent player. And those games, those co-op games can kind of be viewed that way, but not exactly like the Automa from like a lot of the Stonemaier games, which I will say one of the points I wanted to make really quick. It is interesting to see what publishers really push this, while all of them are really pushing it now. Stonemaier, wouldn't you say they're probably near the top of the list of people who really prioritize that in all of their games?
Yeah, they are paired up basically with the Automa Factory. And that's kind of what they do. Linus 42, he's a guy that kind of does that stuff with them. But there are now a bevy of very popular designers and developers right now that we all know of. David Turtzi probably being the lead of that. You also have John Briger, who's done some things as well. He has a whole development team now. So you have quite a few, and then Lacerda, he does his own stuff too. So it's like you got a lot of different ranges as well, which I like. But we didn't talk about this. And I was going to ask you, Jeremy, because you played a card game, like Marvel Champions. Mm-hmm. Do you at least entertain smaller type solo experiences? Because I have a lot of wallet games, a lot of card puzzles, roll and writes, games that are just highly portable and compact. I keep a backpack with me. I have about 10 games on me at all times. I always say I have about 10 games on me all the time. And a lot of them are wallet games or small games I could throw in a bag. I mean, Fleet the Dice game is literally €1. And I can hold it in a small bag, So
yeah.
But I'm just saying, if you've ever tried entertain that or tried that maybe on the road or something like that.
I think you and I are a little bit different because you probably travel a lot more just for your work because you don't work in your household. Yeah. I work in my household, so I don't have the need to go take these small pocket games with me. If I want to play a game, I come downstairs and I typically hop on my computer or my PlayStation. I'm playing a game right away. Again, it goes back to that narrative experience. There's a couple games that really capture me as single player games. Some of them I'll talk about later in the program, but two of them in the past, and Marvel Champions is one of those, obviously, but that goes back to like the Lord of the Rings card game from FFG as well. Like those to me are great multiplayer games, but they're also these intricate puzzles that you're trying to figure out in your mind. And that puzzle is the crux of it. It's always finding that puzzle and tuning it to the best of my ability. But is Legacy of Dragons, which is technically a 1-6 player. And I can't talk at all about or vouch for how good it is as a multiplayer game, but I can say this. As a narrative adventure game, Nikki Valens just slayed this. Like, it's one of the best single-player games I've ever played as a board game. It's a choose-your-own-adventure style game. It's almost a D&D core system, but there's no dice. You're not rolling dice. Everything you do, you log into a logbook, and it leads adventures through the game. And you're doing your upgrades on these character sheets as well. Like, I love this game so much, I've actually played through it twice because the narrative changes depending upon what you do. And I'll probably play through it a third time. And shame on FFG and shame on Asmodee if they don't another system. Another game in this Oracle system because they let Nikki go. And I don't know if they're ever going to touch this system again, but it's such a good game. And the other ones, the games that I always go back, graphic novel adventures from Van Ryder. Like, those are such simple games to play. If you're home alone and there's no one around, they're just real simple, almost like books that you go through. And they're choose your own adventures, but they're really kind of made for a solo experience. So I like those style of games. Again, there's other games I've been playing in the past that, like Tainted Grail is one of those games. I've played that as a solo experience and I enjoy it. But if I'm going to break out a game that has dozens of miniatures and boards and player cards, it's going to last 100 hours, I want to experience that with you guys. I don't want to experience that solo by myself.
I don't.
Sweet.
I don't.
Ryan, what about you, Ryan? You're a big Terraforming Mars solo player, right?
I was actually going to say that because I'm very much like Jeremy. I don't like beat your score. I've never liked that idea, but I found myself playing a lot of puzzly games. Like, I played a lot of Gonshan Clever solo mode, and especially when the app came out, any game that has an app, I'll play. But Terraforming Mars hooked me immediately because it's not really a beat your score game. It gives you these objectives to complete. If anybody's played Terraforming Mars, you have to terraform Mars and you have to do it in 14 generations, which is a huge struggle to do that. Every turn becomes a puzzle of what is the most efficient card? How do you spend your money in the most efficient way? It's incredibly difficult to get that done in 14. Now, there are people who have mastered it to the point where they're not just satisfied terraforming, they also want to hit their high score. And sure, you might get that way eventually, but I've played probably 40 games of Terraforming Mars, and I only have maybe a 50 to 60% win rate because it is such a difficult game. But that's why I like it. I think that's why I like Marvel Champions as well, because it gives you objectives, and it's every hand is like a puzzle. Marvel Champions is the same way. You never know exactly how you're going to be able to play the game that particular session.
And that's cool too, because sometimes I prefer to play Marvel Champions solo because the game experience is just faster. I make all the decisions. I control the tempo of the game. Terraforming Mars is a great example. That's a great multiplayer game, but it's probably just as good as a single player game because you're not waiting for everyone else to go through their hand of cards. Like, you're making all the decisions. You're controlling the entire tempo of the game. So I can see that being an enjoyable thing to do.
Hey, so dig this. I think this is what I wanted you to know, how deep I go into it. So I think this is what'll separate me from everybody. So I'm serious. Like, this is it. So I call this a lifestyle thing. So, like, there are games that I call lifestyle games, just like you have like people who go to D&D night, things like that. So when I got back in the hobby, there was always a game that I had in what I called my campaign table. It's a table that I have where I set up a big game that's going to be played a lot. And I just kind of cover it up so my cats don't sit on it and throw up on it and stuff like that. And I cover it up and stuff so I could just get back to it, right? Like, folklore is like one of those things. You can't just set it out and then pick it back up and put it back down and pick it up. So,
can I interject really quick?
Go ahead.
You're never borrowing one of my games.
I know. You got to watch it. Yeah, you got to watch it, man. You got to watch it. My cat ruined my Olibari. It changed my life. Oh, my God. He was on the fence. He was on the fence. He was on the ropes. Anyway, but I would put this game, like, and I will set it aside, and I will have, like, a time where I play this, and I'm all in. Like, I had Kingdom Death Monster. That is an experience. You turn on the music, you get all these notebooks out, you start filling out your civilization. You're going all in. And I thought about this when you said, hey, when I play a game like Tainted Grail, I want to have a good story. The hardest thing when you get this immersed in these games is when you read the story, and it's such a big disappointment because the story is not as good as you thought it would be.
Yeah.
It's almost like you have to make it up, like in the world that you're in a sense. Like, you just have to be in the world because the story is garbage, so it hurts when you have that, but like, gameplay over everything for me, but it really hurts that you see somebody put a lot of time into writing something and it wasn't that good. I'm not saying Tainted Grail is like that, but I'm just saying there's a lot of games where it's like, well, really got to stick to the mechanics because this is not.
Yeah, the journey's better than the
journey.
story itself.
Right. So
before we get to the next thing, Kira just said that we had a question from the audience. Kira, what's that question for us? She lost it.
No, I'm here. I'm here. I just have to make sure you guys can hear me first. Sorry.
We can hear you.
The question.
We can hear. Can everyone hear you though?
They should be able to.
Okay.
So Jay Davis asks, will solo gaming become as popular as escape room games were in 2019? Industry voices have said that they are moving to solo gaming prior to COVID. It seems like COVID will speed that up.
No, I actually, to be honest with you, I think it's going to go somewhere in between where it'll increase. But I think something that I'm starting to be interested in is the digital side, which will pick up. I think that's going to push more publishers to invest in that kind of stuff so they can reach more people in the multiplayer sense, because honestly, solo gaming, even when they have tabletopias and it says 1 through 5, they don't always have the table. They don't always have the one part in there. Like, they don't. Sometimes when I get prototypes that say 1 through 5, they don't have the one part done. So it's like that doesn't necessarily mean it's gonna, that's gonna fit the bill.
It's interesting you make that point about being on Tabletopia and seeing the 1 to 5. One of the things I've noticed is when I have a real board game, I'll never look at the solo rules. Oftentimes the solo rules are either separate or they're in the back. So, and I'm never usually playing a lot of games solo, so I really just overlook it. However, being on Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator, but in particular Tabletopia, logging in, seeing some games and having that big giant button right there that says solo makes, every time I see it, I think, oh, well, I'm going to try that. I tried Cartographers the other day solo because we were playing it. I played it with a group again the other day. And when I saw it, I saw the solo. So it made me click because it was enough to click it and try it than it was to look through the rules, find the rules or the separate rules in a real board game and like have to learn it that way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
I'll play devil's advocate. I don't ever think solo games are going to be the most important thing. I think there's this weird push right now that every game needs to have a solo mode. And whether good or bad, yeah, you could maybe capture a very small portion of the market that have to play the game solo. or will complain that it doesn't have a solo mode. But the truth is, most of those people aren't going to play the damn game solo anyway. And if they do, they'll play it once.
Yep.
And it's already owned. That whole market is already owned by video games.
Yep.
If you want to play something
is.
solo, the majority of people that are gamers that fall on both sides are going to gravitate towards video games. So, yes, I think it's necessary. I think it's something that people want, and they may play it a couple times, but it feels like it's just this constant urge, especially on Kickstarter. If it doesn't have a solo, I'm going to complain and I don't want to buy it.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Well, I was just going to say, it's this really small but really vocal group. I mean, we get comments on some of our YouTube videos that say, no solo, no buy. And I'm like, okay, well, I mean, there's other games out there. Like,
Right.
I'm a big fan. This is the thing. I am, as a person, I'm not going to say the word I used to say, but I can always make a crappy solo out of most games. And I'm not a designer. So I always tell people, like, you can make a bad solo. Like, Undaunted has some unofficial solo. I'm not going to buy a game because it has a variant that somebody made. Like, whereas Abomination, what I was talking with David about, like, they came out with an official solo variant, which is what I heard when the game was coming out would be with the game. So I was excited about it, and then I got completely derailed from it. I was like, man, forget this game. And then they were like, yeah, we actually have official rules and whatever. I want that game now. So, like, because I know that it's a long player. I know it's a long play for multiplayer, very long. Some people say too long. But for a solo player, that's perfection to me, especially because I like longer games. But yeah, I often feel, and I should say this, the solo community is a very loud community. We have the biggest group on BGG. It's like the biggest organized group. So,
Boy, there's irony there.
Yeah. So it's like, I know. I always say we should start a solo con. We should have
everybody
solo
goes
con.
and just plays at their own table.
Right.
Yeah. And then, so it's just like, that's the thing. It's like, we're such a vocal group, man. But I worry that we do force publishers sometimes with the weight of our audience who are struggling to fund, or they just funded, and they go like, oh yeah, we can work on the solo. And I've seen some ones that have backfired so bad on designers, and people just trashing these publishers. I'm like, I think you may have begged and you got what you asked for. And now you got these terrible games.
And you got to think of it that way too. If a bad solo experience can turn the person off to the multiplayer game, which could be phenomenal, and vice versa.
Yeah,
anyway, go ahead, Ryan.
I was gonna say, it's just people don't realize how hard it is to design a solo mode. I was playing David Turtzi's new game, the Defensive Procyon 3. I played solo as the humans, which you're defending against an alien attack. And I said to him, like, it would be really cool to play as the aliens in solo mode. And he said, the design on that is almost impossible. He doesn't even know, like, he said he's tried and failed, and he's one of the best solo designers out there. So I think people just need to look at certain games and realize this game cannot work solo. The experience is not going to be what the designer wanted. So why would you fight for that?
Wonder if they could have a solo mode for just one. That'd be pretty interesting.
Oh my gosh! Oh, no.
Anyway, Kira, you said we had another question from the audience. What was that question?
Yeah. So William asks, how much solo gaming is just the joy of discovering the production and design?
0.
You say 0?
No, I'm serious. Like that's just not my mindset. Like when I buy a game, if I'm buying a game because I think I would want to play it, and I also just want the solo, like my purchases are always going to be well researched, and it's gameplay over everything, always. Like, don't get me wrong, printer miniatures. I got tons of miniature game back here, so you can disprove me wrong. Chip Theory Games is my favorite publisher. You can disprove me wrong with aesthetics. I love production, but it's got to be gameplay or everything. I'm not worried about all that other stuff, man. That's silly stuff to me.
I would say the same thing. I mean, aesthetics is important to all of us, but I think Jeremy Salinas hit it on the head for me earlier. For a solo experience, it's got to be kind of a puzzle to solve for me. It's got to be something that it's like sitting and doing a puzzle. Like you're sitting there trying to figure it out. You only have yourself to rely on. It's you against the game, and it forces you to think in that sort of puzzly fashion. Those are the things, and like what you were saying about terraforming Mars, Ryan, it sounds like a thing you have to figure out how to do in those 14 rounds. That's what's most important to me, or would be.
You know what?
Kara, do you
If
have
you played
another
solo.
question?
I do. Actually, this one's specifically for you, Salinas. This is from Drew, and he says, you don't like solo, but what about your love of Seventh Continent? Do you only play story adventure games in groups, or do you play those solo?
No, I mean, he's correct. I like Seventh Continent as a solo game. I like it as a multiplayer game, just like Lord of the Rings, the new one from FFG. People don't like that game. I loved it as a multiplayer adventure. And I imagine the same thing with Ryan Lockett's Sleeping Gods. Like, we're going to play that as a group when it comes out, but I imagine it's just as good as a solo game. So I'm not adverse to playing those type of games. I just know that it takes a lot for me to sit down at the table, break out a game that's as big as those games that you just mentioned, and leave it on the table and play it for, weeks on end, when I can experience that same game with people and have stories. A great example is what's the game that we just recently played, Legacy? Of course, you can't play that multiplayer,
Legacy.
but that experience is a communal experience.
Mhm.
And most of these solo games can be better experiences as communal experiences.
Yeah.
So that's how I want to play them. But if I'm going to break down a game as a solo game, I'm going to play Marvel Champions because it's fast.
Right.
It's a deck of cards and a villain deck, and it's simple to break down. So
This
those
is
are the ones that gravitate towards playing. Go ahead, Jayhal.
No, I was just thinking about a game that's similar to what you guys are saying. So Kira probably knows how much I love Aeon's End, right? I love Aeon's End.
Yeah.
As soon as she even hears, I go like absolutely bonkers. I'm like, oh my god, what is it at? Where is it at? So it's a cooperative game, and this is interesting. I have never even thought of playing with somebody else, like ever. I play two-handed. I play Legacy two-handed. Like I play Legacy. Like I just think to myself, like, gosh, there's got to be. There are games that require experiences. Like Cthulhu Death May Die was a game where I realized like it's got to be way more fun with more people because you're chucking dice. There's thrilling moments. There's risky decisions, and you both want to be there in the moment. You possibly win or lose, but it has just as big of moments where things sync up, and they are huge. But it feels so rewarding to do it by yourself and go like, oh yeah, it's coming. I got these portals open. Bam, Whereas like with Cthulhu Death May Die, it's like you can have some epic rolls, and it's like you're just kind of by yourself having epic rolls. Like, like dude, last night I was playing Cthulhu Death May Die, and I had this epic roll where I rolled all sixes, and I jumped from the table by myself.
You're singing my song here because Death May Die. I've been playing a lot, and after Jeremy said what he just said, I was going to make this point. When you play that alone, it's a puzzle. But it lacks all of the excitement and fun around the table that you get, which makes that game infinitely better. If I had to choose, I would 100% of the time always play that with a group because it's some of the most fun I've ever had at a table that way.
And it's an amazing game. That's an amazing game. And I've set it aside just for my game group too.
Yeah.
Kier, did you have a question? Sorry, Jeremy.
That's fine. Kira, do you have a question?
I do. Do you think that solo games may stand out more in a market if they're a puzzle or if they're an adventure feeling kind of game?
Well, the numbers say adventure. So the numbers say adventure. No question.
Yeah,
it's just no comparison.
Jeremy, for sure. I mean, games like role-playing games that are so big, and people love role-playing games, but role-playing games are incredibly difficult to play solo. You really can't play role-playing games solo. Which is why games that are adventures, or like you mentioned, Legacy of Dragonhold earlier, why those games I think are so big because there are so few of them in the market. And I think every time a new game like Tainted Grail comes out, it's going to be huge. I mean, you can get puzzles anywhere. You can have that experience basically whenever you want. But being able to take part in an epic story, it's so rare to be able to do that solo, and it's so rewarding to have that experience.
Yeah. There's some interesting conversations that have come out of this. Like, I do like the fact that a lot of games, regardless if they have a solo mode or not, can be played as a single player playing multiple different characters. Like, you look at games like Descent. The first time I ever played the game Descent was by myself. I never played with anybody for the first several times. and I was controlling multiple different characters. I've done the same thing with Imperial Assault when I first played that the first couple times. So a lot of those games, I appreciate that designers make them in a way where one player can control all of them. I just don't think it's a necessary evil that you have to put a solo mode in there to appease everybody, because not every game is designed to be a solo game. And I think that's kind of delaying or pushing people in the wrong direction. So that's just my 2 cents.
So I have that's another thing. So I play all types of solo games, but the one thing that I think my core comes from is like heavy Euro games. And I think of like Lacerda games. I think of like, I have Tricarion right now. Like I'm going to be working through Tricarion. And I think to myself, like, that's where those are the solo gamers you just don't hear about very often. Those people. I think they're too busy trying to figure the game out still.
Like on Mars. On Mars has a solo.
But on Mars, yes. Like, so Lacerda's my favorite designer. And I spend, when you have to play, I have to sit for a week, make sure I know what the heck I'm doing to make my first turn, and then eventually learn how to play it solo, which always has some ambiguity in it. But like, I just think to myself, like, I want to meet more of those people and find out what makes them tick. Because like for me, I don't even know if those are almost all, actually they're all beat your score. They're not objectives. I mean, you beat your opponent, but I mean, like, I just wonder, because I feel like viticulture and terraforming Mars are sort of like in that middle. But then there's these people, that are like going above and beyond. And I watch Edward from Heavy Cardboard struggle today to play the Gallerist by himself. And I'm thinking, boy, he's really hurting to play with people. He is really hurting to play with people. So I think to myself, like, man, I must be in a very rare niche of people who really like heavy games. And I always wanted to meet those people and talk to them, see what kind of games they like. So if you're in the chat, let me know what you like.
We got more questions. We'll come back to talking about what we've been playing. I'll start because I went last time. I've been playing video games and board games, and I'll talk about 2 video games. I'll talk about a bunch of board games. First is Neo 2. It's a Soul-style game. It's punishingly hard. Puts you through these gauntlets of enemies and bosses that a single mistake will set you back 20 to 30 minutes, and mistakes happen all the time in this game. So I finally beat this game. I don't claim to be an excellent video game player, but I am persistent as hell. And I've spent probably 50 to 80 hours on this game, 63 unique bosses, and it was pure adulation when I beat this game. Because number one, I never had to play it again. And if you've ever played these games, your hands sweat, palms sweat, you're constantly stressed. And I'm already stressed because I'm at home all the time with family, and you have all these obligations, and I don't want to be down here playing video games, but I was just so
yes, he does.
I was just so committed to getting this beat. So I finally beat Neo 2, and that was just awesome. And then I've been playing XCOM 2. I played the original XCOM. I loved it. I always felt like it was leaning more on the more punishing side, but what an incredible game this is. To me, this is essentially like playing a strategic board game. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again. I've asked this for many years from publishers, even before the creation of Man vs. Meeple. I want a board game that basically recreates the tactical positioning, the flanking, the elevation, the maneuvering of games like XCOM, games like Brothers in Arms, Warrior, all those old games where you're constantly positioning around. And I've never found anything that's fully satisfying about being in a hedgerow, being in a ditch, being in a World War II trench. I want one of those kind of games because there is something just so satisfying about playing XCOM. Like when you make the exact right combination of characters and get them in the right positions, you just go,
you feel so good. You feel so strong.
I feel so smart. I'm the smartest guy in the world right now in this moment. And XCOM 2 does that all the time. So I love that game. As far as board games go, there's 2 games I've been playing that have been playing solo. One is Low Memory. This is from Board and Dice. I played through all 3 of these different scenarios. It's an escape room game. game to be really hard, almost too hard, like to the point where I was getting hints to help quite often with the game. And the story was really good until the end, and the end kind of fell flat for me. But the experience up to then was really good, and I like escape rooms, I like exit and unlocks and all those. So it's a pretty good game. Also, David and I covered Monumental from FunForge. It feels like 2 years ago now, right?
It feels like a while back.
It was.
It's been a while, but it's a Civilization game. This is the final version of it. I played a solo game of it, and it's still a really long game, almost too long, I felt, for a solo game. But they've added heroes and monsters to it, which I haven't tried those, so I'm excited to try both of those. And the final game, and I'll let some of the other guys talk about too, is Feed the Kraken. It was this is not a solo game in any way. It's a 5 to 11 player game. It's a social deduction game. Very much like all the other social deductions, where you're trying to figure out who the traitors are, or the pirates in this case, the sailors, and then you have cultists. But you're playing it on a board. And it was, we played it on, we didn't even play it on Tabletopia. We played it via camera. Basically, Nils was walking us through the game. But it was a really fun game, and I imagine the game gets even better with a higher player count. We played it 6 players or 5 players?
Yeah.
6. We played it 6. And it plays 11. And with 11, you have a lot more roles that you're playing and a lot more different icons and things that come into the game. But it was a really fun experience with a lot of table talking, a lot of backstabbing and stuff. But good game. So those are my 3 board games that I've been playing.
I'll go next.
Go David.
I'll go next. So I have been playing some video games too. Don't let Jeremy fool you. He's been playing a lot of XCOM 2, and he's loved every minute of it. Whether he's I think there's probably moments where you didn't even know whether your family was upstairs animore because you've probably been playing that.
It's hard to get off that game, man. It's really hard to get off of.
Oh, it is. It's addictive.
Similar to XCOM 2, and I think we all have those kind of games on the brain because there's a new XCOM coming out. In fact, tonight at midnight, right?
I'm up.
I'll be downloading that one for sure. But I played this game on my Xbox One called Mutant Year Zero. This game's I think it came out within the last couple years, maybe.
Yeah.
And it's free on Game Pass right now, and it is very much that kind of game. Although it's interesting, it's set in this sort of like post-apocalyptic mutant type situation where like humanoid pigs and ducks, and you actually start the game as a duo. There's this duck person, a duck humanoid, and this boar. And it feels far more narrative than XCOM. I haven't gotten terribly far because it is so hard. Like I've just gotten to a situation, and it's ever progressing. It's not like mission after mission like an XCOM. It's just like you're kind of walking around and walking into the next area. And there may be a couple of places in that area where you can interact with enemies. There's one that I don't know if I'm in an area where I'm not supposed to be there yet or what, but it is. I've tried it like 6 times, and it is honestly so very hard. But it's really cool, very similar to those games. I will be playing XCOM as well. The only board game I want to talk about, I've played both on the table and virtually, and that is Seven Wonders Duel. I'll go over all 3 experiences. The first was awful. The first was with Jeremy. Jeremy and I are both kind of new to Tabletopia and Tabletop Simulator, and we haven't played too much of those together in the past. But what was that, earlier this week or something like that? We played Duel, and there was a great iteration of it on Tabletop Simulator where the guy has programmed it so well. You lay the cards on your side of the table. The other player lays them on their side of the table. At the end, you just push a button, and it scores up the whole game. Like it calculates everything for you. It's beautiful. I won't talk about who won that. Jeremy crushed me. Jeremy, in fact, I've rarely seen anyone win science or military in that game. Still not so much on science, but Jeremy got military. I let him get a military lead thinking I'd be able to back in. And then unfortunately, in the second age, there was a ton of military cards that all happened to be face up. So he saw all of his military options, and I got to a situation where I just couldn't manage away from those military cards. So he won with the military. Then I played again with Rob from Blue Peg Pink Peg. He doesn't like Seven Wonders Duel. I'm outing him right here. He'd never played with the expansion though, and he did admit that with the what is it,
Pantheon.
Pantheon expansion. I have it set up on the table right now. It got a lot better, and that's true. It makes the game a lot better. And then finally, I played it right over there on my table with my son today. And I think I have to say it once again, I suck at board games because my son beat me. He had a killer score, though. He scored 82 or 84 points, which is a big score in Seven Wonders Duel. And it beat me by almost 20 points. So that's what I've been doing.
All right, I'll go, and we can let Jeremy Howard go last since he's our guest. But I've been playing some video games, too. I talked last week about the Final Fantasy VII Remake, and, of course, I'm still playing that. My opinion on this game has not changed. I still think it's a masterpiece. It's kind of changed the way video games should look for me. My expectations of games in the future are going to be a lot higher. But on the board game side, Jeremy Salinas and I got the chance to play Defense of Procyon 3 live against the and it was kind of at the very beginning. Jeremy and I thought like we were doomed, but it ended up being a real like we came back though. We came back in a really big way, and it ended up. I don't want to spoil the ending. Let me just say that like it got intense and it was a nail biter. So that's going up on our channel sometime here soon. And then of course I was also in that Don't Feed the Kraken game, and I, as a big social deduction player, I found a lot to enjoy here. It felt to me like a combination between Secret Hitler with a little Don't Mess with Cthulhu with a little bit of the Resistance thrown in. And the way that you're deducing information, there's a lot of people putting cards into a box and then your navigator is choosing, and you can go to 3 different paths. There's like the cultist path, the pirate path, and the sailor path. And so you're trying to deduce by every card that was picked. And it's a lot like, you know, Secret Hitler, where they're saying, oh, well, they handed me 2 red cards. I had to pick a red card. And it's like, well, are you lying? So David mentioned this while we were playing, and I agree with him that by taking that experience and putting it on a board where you have a ship that is moving to a specific goal so that you can look at the board and you can see your progress. And it just adds so much to the game, and it adds a real tactile feel to the game as well. So I'm really excited to see what the final version of this game is going to look like. And I think this is going to be a great convention game. We played on the basic map, and they mentioned that there's an advanced map that looks even crazier. So I'm really excited to get
beautiful.
back into it and try that.
It's a good looking game.
Oh yeah, for sure. Yeah.
All right, J-How.
All right, enough of all this 5-player and up crap. All right, anyway. Jeez.
Okay, now the guy with no friends. What have you been playing?
You're about to make me fall asleep, man. All right. All right, anyway. So I just want to talk about one game that I just flat out love this game. Now, Isle of Cats is just amazing. We're gonna sidebar that. Isle of Cats is amazing. It's a great, fantastic solo game, family game, multiplayer game, works at all player counts. Awesome. Atlantis Rising. Let me tell you, if you are a solo gamer, or even if it's just you and your spouse, and you got a little kid that just barely knows how to play board games, it does not matter. That game, oh my gosh, it's such an exciting game. Now, if you don't know what this game is, it's basically Atlantis is sinking, and you have this little power source in the middle, and you have all these little island tiles that make up the different little islands that go up into the middle. And what happens is you're trying to place your workers and get resources and more townspeople to kind of like build these little pieces, these machines parts, to kind of like save the planet. But meanwhile, there's literally like the board is being taken away from you, so it gets hard to like roll dice, place workers in certain spots, and save them. Let me tell you something. This game is beautiful. It is punishing. There is always going to be pressure on you, and I mean, when the rolls go big, they go big, and there's always going to be like this whoa or no moments. And I mean, they're literally like there could be like 5 of those, or there could be like, oh my God, please, when we turn this card, please do not be another disaster. And or right when you thought you're gonna die, you get a calm seas flipped over, and you're like, oh, we're safe. So it's such an exciting game. So if you're looking like this one exciting game, even for a solo player, all the way up to the max player count. The first time I played it at max player count, and it was insane. But I loved it, and I love it at single player. So that's just one game I'll just tell you about. I have plenty of solo games I could talk about forever.
We've played
But
it. We lost
but
it badly.
but I wanna kind of touch on two games that I think are really good for digital. Well, one is in early access, and that's Spirit Island. So if you know what Spirit Island is, you should definitely check that one out. But these ones that I wanted to talk about was Druidstone, which is similar to our XCOM, which is similar to that Newton Zero. They're all these action point, movement, tactical kind of movement games. This one sets itself apart by you're taking these gems and putting them inside of the player points, and you can like buff their stats, but you can actually take those out and put them in different people between the missions. So when one person levels up, they get more skills, but the gems that you earn, you can put them in your character in a certain slot, or you can take them and move them to another character, so that when you go back and repeat missions, you can actually have, kind of a different setup. And it expands. The AI is really different on how it mobs you up, and it kind of punishes you for focus attacking, and it prioritizes you like running. Like, hey, like sometimes you just got to run. So it's kind of interesting how that game plays out. And the last one is Sentinels of Freedom, which is, I don't know if you know Sentinels of Multiverse, that thing. I've never played that, so I was surprised the publisher asked me to play this game. But what's really interesting about this one was it's the same idea, but you're running attacks and things like that. But the cool part is it really feels like a comic book when you play it, because you actually make your own superhero, and it's just like it's just like XCOM, when you like customize your character and do all this stuff, but you get to pick their superpowers, your first and second power, and their third talent. It's really, really cool. And you also get to tell stories of different characters during the time you're playing one mission. So it's like you could be doing your mission, and then like another character's doing their mission, and then you guys come together, or like you'll see them down the line, but you played as them, which is kind of cool. So yeah, I've been really liking some of these new digital games, but Chimera Squad comes out tonight, so probably all these are going to get put to the side. So yeah, a lot of cool stuff. I've been playing a lot of cool games, man. There's been a lot of cool.
Kira, do you have another question for us?
I do. Amanda wants to know if, as
I
reviewers,
think you're muted, Kira, by the way.
Be muted.
Nobody
So I
can hear.
oh, I'm muted for you guys. Sorry, I wasn't
All
muted
right,
for the audience. So I apologize for that. As reviewers, Amanda says, are you feeling caught up assuming that there is more time to play games coming in and less being released, or because of social distancing, are games having to sit?
I mean, I have a answer for myself. I mean, at first I was like, man, we're gonna miss out. I was like, all these conventions being canceled, we're gonna miss out on a lot of great games. We're not getting new games in. But then I had to stop and think, like, they're not pushing new games out right now. Like, there's been a lot of pauses in the design, development, and publishing chain. So I think this year we're gonna have some releases, but it's not gonna be like it's been the past few years. So while we might not get to review as much right now, there also isn't a lot coming out. I mean, our game store isn't even getting new games right now. So I don't know if it's the same everywhere, but most distributors even have closed their doors for the time being. So really, unless you got like a Kickstarter delivery, people really generally aren't getting a lot of brand new games.
Plus, in terms of whether or not we're still able to play some new games or games being sent to us, the publishers, at least in my opinion, have done a really, really good job of quickly adjusting. We're playing so many things online on Tabletopia, and a lot of these publishers did that in the past, but I think there's a lot that hadn't, and they just transitioned over to doing that really quickly. We've all been able to, I mean, how many, we've played what? Probably from publishers, 4 or 5 different games that we would have typically gotten a prototype of. And we're still getting prototypes. We just have to experience those a little bit differently. Maybe we can set them up with cameras and play them, or like Jeremy Howard, playing them solo and trying to understand how the game plays by ourselves.
Go ahead,
JL. Go ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, for me, since I do a lot more promotional stuff, so like I'm doing a little bit more of that on Solo Sundays and stuff like that. I just have to make my way through this stuff, because some of this stuff, it's ridiculous how much stuff will arrive that I have to play, and I'm thinking, like, I know this is solo, but I'm only one person when it's solo. Like, there's a lot of stuff. Like, I have Reichbusters here. It's like, but at the end of the day, there are 5 boxes of Reichbusters, and there's still one me. So, like, I can't get through all this stuff. But you're right. You do get a chance to play more, but I'm lucky that I do get a chance to go to like all these different podcasts and live shows and talk about the games.
Mhm.
And there's certainly can talk specifically about solo. I go to talk about educational games. There's one that I go to that's for families and general casual stuff. And then there's this one that I just literally, he's just like, just keep talking about games until I tell you to stop. So I'm lucky that I get, like, I'm literally it's like 30 minutes of me just talking. He's like, just get it out. Yeah, I've been very lucky that way because of this weird time that we're in, like weird times.
I'll say, as unfortunate as this whole experience has been, and there's going to be fallout for a long time with a lot of these publishers, maybe even disappearing and going away, and that's unfortunate. But on the flip side, it's allowed me to actually play through some of the games that I haven't had the opportunity to play in a while. To actually spend time with my family to play games that have been sitting in my, on my collection for quite some time, and re-experience these with, our kids who've never played them. Like King of Tokyo is a great example. I would never play King of Tokyo outside of this past month. And we've enjoyed the new Dark Edition because they're at the right age. It's a really fun family game. A lot of these games I'm starting to play again, and I think that's good for a lot of these publishers because people are just churning through games right now. And it's been this way for 4 or 5 years. Yeah. And now, through this unfortunate virus, we've had a nice little lull, this little break. And I don't want to come off as sounding like the virus is a great thing, because it's not. But what I'm saying is this break has allowed some of the publishers to refocus and say, these are the games that mean something to us. These are what we're going to have to put our money into. Instead of 5,000 new games, there may be only 1,000 new games this year. And that may not be a bad thing for consumers.
Mm-hmm.
So
I can't agree more.
Yeah,
right.
I would agree. Like you said, it's not like this is a good thing, but it's forcing all of us to change our perspectives about a lot of different things.
Yeah.
I think people, companies, all sorts are going to come out on the other side of this with a different perspective and hopefully a better perspective on how they should treat one another, how they should operate their businesses, all those sorts of things.
I'm more of a fan of I even said this because I'm doing a giveaway. I'm doing this industry-wide giveaway for people in need and stuff like that. And one of the things I tell people is like, games I can give you a game and it'll make you feel okay for like a night, or it may, help you get through a tough time or whatever. But like sometimes people play games so much, it's not like exciting and relieving. It's just something you do every day. It's like your workout, right? So I'm like, maybe you want to put the games down and just have conversation, maybe do something else. And I know that sounds crazy. We're gaming, whatever, but I'm like, this may be also the time where now actually people are home for dinner and people can sit around and, and not play games every night. What are we going to play? What are we going to play? What are we going to play? And I hope that people have, while they're doing this, spend time with their family while they can, because it's tough. It's going to be tough. So yeah. Cool.
Well, J. Hal, thank you for stopping by. Kira, thank you obviously for being behind the scenes, feeding those questions to us. If you guys play solo games, let us know in the comments what games are good, which ones may have awesome AIs that we're missing. Make comments below as well to win a copy of The Shining. And thank you for tuning in to MVM. Be safe, and we will see you guys later.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Take care, partner.